Bien, llamamos ahora a Benediktbeuern. Su conferencia Specialized Energy Consultants for Architectural Heritage.
Try not to destroy this. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually quite a long title, so the training of experts for energy retrofit at the Fraunhofer Center. I spare you the rest. So I'll explain you in the next 15 minutes what is behind this presentation. So first of all, I would like to present to you the Fraunhofer Center in Benediktbeuern, where we are working on a historic building and doing all kinds of research and demonstration for energy, but also for general retrofit of historic buildings. I will present very briefly the current research projects that we have, looking also on energy efficiency in historic buildings. And I will tell you a bit about the current state of the training for energy consultants for historic buildings in Germany. Okay, here we go. So, first of all, I'm an employee of the Fraunhofer Institutes for Building Physics. Fraunhofer is a large society for applied research in Germany. It's a non-profit organization which is funded also by 1/3 from the State Ministry for Science in Germany. And it has more than 60 institutes and about 20,000 employees. Our institute is located in Stuttgart with a branch in Kassel and another branch in Holzkirchen, where I work with an outdoor testing site that you can see here. And it features about 400 employees who are working in the field of building physics. And we also have this center that we have founded in Benediktbeuern about 5 years ago. And the topics that the Fraunhofer Institute of Building Physics addresses is more or less the whole field of building physics, starting from acoustic and noise control. Very important today is, of course, the energy efficiency in energy systems, then building systems, lighting technology. We also have a big department in Holzkirchen that focuses on building chemistry and microbiology and hygiene. We have our own department in Stuttgart about life cycle engineering. And we have the people who look at indoor environment, at simulation of temperature and moisture in materials, so the hygrothermics, to durability and also to heritage preservation, which is my field. It's a small field inside the institute, so we are only about 5 people, but we try to include all the competences from around us in the projects that we have. And if you look at energy efficiency in historic buildings, there are a lot of different possibilities that you can address. So we already heard today and yesterday different approaches. So you can, for example, do a lot with insulation, insulating just the attic, or having a warm roof, insulating the floor, which are easy to do, usually easy to do things. Quite controversial is if you would like to insulate the outer walls. Then you have the internal wall insulation, which has, from the building physics point of view, a lot of problems. You can improve your windows, or you can exchange them, you can try to restore them. And you can also change something on the way you distribute the heat, or also the cooling maybe, in your building, or the way you generate the energy. And these are all aspects that we want to address in this building in Benediktbeuern. Benediktbeuern is a large monastery, a very important one, south of Bavaria. It dates back to 800 after Christ, so it's a very old one. And we have one building here in the former craftsman's district, which is called the Old Cooperage. And it's a very simple building. And the monastery, they were looking for somebody to use it, and we were looking for a building to do research. And so together with the state's administration for monuments in Bavaria, we had the opportunity to work here. And these are some impressions from the ground floor, and this is the attic. This is the roof repair works. So in the front part of the building, we still have the original tiles. We recovered most of them and put them in place again. There were major restorations going on, so these dormers had to be reconstructed. We couldn't conserve them. And this is more or less what the upper floor looks like today. And we also have this very interesting historic lift construction from former building site. So in general, the center has these 4 columns. So we are doing research. We are a research institute, but we also want to do demonstration to bring this research to the people. We want to collect knowledge, and also we want to disseminate this knowledge by training. And we have a lot of partners who support this undertaking, on the one hand financially for the building, but on the other hand also from the content side. So we have the Technische Universität München, we've got the WTA, which is something like a standardization normative group that develops guidelines for heritage buildings, and we also have contact to the architects and to the craftsmen. But we also work together with industrial partners. So we want to develop compatible solutions for historic buildings, and we think it's also necessary to include the industry in that aspect. And Fraunhofer usually works well together with the industry. From the monument side of view, it's always a bit difficult, but we're trying to bring these two sides also together. So this is the general layout of the building. So we have this front building here and this building up here, so where we can do different measurements, and this will be used for practical workshops. We've got a big exhibition space here and rooms for seminars. And in general, we want to address all questions related to the refurbishment of a historic building, starting from temperature control to ventilation to thermal insulation, wall constructions, but also plasters and mortars. How do you address, for example, humid walls, coatings, windows? I think it's especially important to preserve historic windows because they are kind of the eyes of a historic building. And in Germany, we are the world masters in throwing out old windows and putting in new windows, which is a development I don't like very much. And we also want to look at noise control and room acoustics. But we also want to develop concepts for low energy retrofit. So we have a concept of a thermal building envelope. In the front building, we will have a cold roof, and in the smaller northern building, we will have a warm roof. And here, in accordance with the state administrations, we are also allowed and obliged to test some external wall insulation. And so we have different topics addressing at the moment. So we have a demonstration project about attic floor insulation with about 8 different materials that we are showing here. This is still work for the future. The warm roof, also a demonstration center that is planned. We also have a project about wall heating systems that tries to compare different distribution of heat. So low temperature wall heating compared to the temperierung system that the Italian colleagues showed yesterday, to standard conventional convective heating system. And at the moment, the largest project that we have is about internal wall insulation. And the special idea is that we want to develop a reversible insulation system. So basically, we will have some kind of a coating or a mortar that should be able to take it away if you want to remove your insulation after some years. And we will look especially at renewable materials because we think that they have a high compatibility with heritage buildings, at mineral insulation, capillary, active insulation, and at thin, high-performance insulating systems like vacuum insulation panels. And you all have heard about these aerogel materials that are very interesting these days. And what we usually do is that we test the materials in our outdoor testing site before we bring them to the historic building, and we usually also test them with different simulation tools so that we can be sure that we don't do any damages to our real historic building that we have. And in this project, we want to compare 11 different systems. We already installed 4 systems last winter, and this autumn we will install the rest of the systems and let it run for 2 years. And some of the systems will also stay much longer here to look at their long-term durability. But there's also further research going on. We've heard about wooden beams from NIC, which is a difficult thing, because if you have moisture moving to the end of the beam that's in the wall, you will have rot, which is especially a problem in the cold area where we are. So we have temperatures going to -10, -15, sometimes even -20 degrees in the winter. And as I already have mentioned, we also want to look at the preservation of original windows, so we are launching a new project proposal in that direction at the moment. And it's an open center. It's not open all the time, but we have public visits, and we also have training sessions there. And the retrofit is going on, so we hope to open it completely next year in the summer. But we also intentionally take a lot of time in doing this restoration of the building because we want to do this research parallel to it, and we also want to inform the interested population or architects, engineers about the progress of the building. So the general objectives are: we want to research on current topics from the building conservation field. We want to demonstrate different solutions on site with exhibitions, with regular training and educational programs. So we also work together with a school from the area in southern Bavaria. We plan to have something like an advisory service. This is quite difficult to establish that. But we also have databases on materials and on literature, and we want to disseminate the results of the research, because we're not doing this for ourselves, so we want everybody to profit from it. This is the idea. So this was the first 2 parts of the presentation about the center and the current research projects, and now I would like to give you a short overview. Perfect. Of the training for energy consultants and cultural heritage for historic buildings in Germany. And this is an example of a passive house that used to be a heritage building before it was turned into a passive house. And the state's Ministry for Environment, they like this example very much. The state's administration for heritage buildings, they don't like it so much, because it's a big success story in terms of annual heat consumption. So you have a very low energy heat consumption after the refurbishment. But on the other hand, you have a new building. So we think that you really have to make sure that the people outside are informed about what is the right thing to do. And this is why we had this initiative, which was actually launched by we have 16 different countries in Germany, but they all meet for the Vereinigung der Landesdenkmalpfleger, which is the big assembly of all the heritage authorities. And they said we need to train especially energy consultants for historic buildings. So they brought together a few institutions, including the WTA. It was sponsored by the Deutsche Bundesstiftung Umwelt, the German Environmental Foundation, the Deutsche Stiftung Denkmalschutz. We were also included in this process. And down here, this is the engineers, this is the architects council, and this is also the craftsmen's council. So all the major players were included in developing this training course. And it's quite a long training course. It's professional training, so you have to be an architect or an engineer to visit it, and it's 72 teaching units. And it starts with a general overview: what is a heritage building and why is it valuable? Then there's something about funding measures, laws and regulations. A big block is about the assessment of historic structures, also from the building physics point of view. Then about concepts, holistic approaches to refurbishment, specific planning and refurbishment concepts, and also a big block on the implementation on the site and the documentation. And just to give you an overview of two of these topics more clearly, so this is the general background on building heritage preservation, and quite often in these courses there are people from the state authorities involved who give this part of the course. So there are basics of the monument preservation laws, basics of practical monument preservation from the point of view of the authorities, ways and methods, building analysis, historic building techniques, and also historic building styles, and also some hints on especially valuable historic structures that you really have to preserve. From the building physics point of view, there's a block on materials, historic materials, building construction, technical house systems, about moisture management, damage prevention, air exchange and infiltration, also about building damages, what causes them, and about user needs and user behavior. And nowadays we have this online list, so if you want a counselor, and for example you're from Munich, you can enter this list, which is publicly accessible, and you can say you're either from a resident building or from a public building, and then you will get, in the case of Munich, 27 hits of people who are trained in this special course. And I come to the conclusion, so we have this training for the energy consultants for historic buildings now available in Germany since 2011. The criteria have been established in 2010, 2011. We have the training course since December 2011 available. And there's 14 different training institutions nowadays who offer this course. And I just looked on the list today, and it's actually more than 850 energy consultants specialized for historic buildings in Germany. So the professionals really value this course and as an extra possibility if they want to work in this field. And it makes it easier to integrate specialists in building projects from the state heritage preservation authorities as well. And of course you have counseling for communities and just for the heritage building owners. Nick mentioned Climate for Culture yesterday, so I didn't talk about Climate for Culture, where I am one of the scientific coordinators. If you're interested in the outcomes of that project, there will be more in the future because we're just working on a final report. There's a nice publication available for free on climate control in historic buildings. That's the blue one. And the new one from Nicholas Heath, that is on the right side. And there's more information available on the web, and you can always also contact me directly if you have any questions. So, thank you.